Is she going to go there? Oh yeah, I'm going there today. So if you want to come with me, stay tuned. Hey everybody, welcome to Book Talks with Miss Thomas. I'm Miss Thomas, and normally I like to film about books, but lately I have been filming a lot about the Bible, and I've just been really fascinated specifically with the women of the Old Testament Bible, and it led to me writing a Bible study. It started out as a Bible study on Ruth, and then I started thinking about the different women mentioned in the lineage of Jesus, and so I've expanded it. And I spent a lot of time writing about Bathsheba. And I have to tell you, it was a very emotional, very draining experience to really just sit with Bathsheba and what really her story says, and to just try and visualize it and think very deeply about it, and to look for all the little nuggets in the Bible about Bathsheba that I could find so that I could pass it on to you guys, and I can pass it on to anyone who reads my Bible study when it's published. I'm still working on that. But I want to say, as I was writing it, my son, of all people, my oldest son, made the comment to me that he believes Bathsheba consented, to the whole thing with David. And I was horrified. I was like, that's not consent. Just because she didn't say no. And he was like, yeah, she didn't say no. And she didn't stand up for what was right. And so, a lot of Bible commentators believe that she consented. And I started looking into that, and I'll be darned if my son is not correct. So yeah, it turns out there are quite a few Bible commentators out there that believe Bathsheba consented to what happened with she and David. So I don't think she consented, and I'm going to get into that today in my video. All right, so first of all, the story of Bathsheba, you can find it in 2 Samuel chapter 11, and mine is titled David and Bathsheba, just to make things really easy for you to find it. As you probably know, even people who are not like major Bible readers know that David was on the roof when he spotted Bathsheba bathing, right? And it almost sounds erotic, but the truth of the matter is that many Hebrew women, quite likely Bathsheba, was bathing wearing something like a tunic or a sheath. They were bathing on the roof, but she was not bathing in the nude, quite likely. The Bible doesn't say for sure, but I believe because it was typical of Hebrews to bathe wearing something modest. It's not like they had indoor plumbing, so she was bathing on her roof. However, the other thing is, David wasn't supposed to be there. David was supposed to be at battle. So he was on his roof, unexpected. She had no way of knowing that he would be on his roof watching her while she was bathing. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that Bathsheba was married to Uriah the Hittite. And I want to point that out to you because Bathsheba is one of the few women, she's the only woman in Matthew 1 that is not named by name. It does say, at least in my translation, it says in the genealogy of Jesus in the first chapter of Matthew, it says David was the father of Solomon by the wife of Uriah. So they don't name her Bathsheba in Matthew, but they name her as the wife of Uriah. So she was the wife of Uriah, who was a loyal and good man, a good soldier, serving his country proudly under the authority of David. When David spots his wife bathing, I still say probably wearing something, not just flaunting her body out there. And he sends soldiers to her house, and they summon her to, the king. And, they conceive a child after that. So yes, she did not refuse, as far as we know. There's no evidence that Bathsheba said this is wrong. And there are other women in the Bible who do say this is wrong. I believe it's right there in 2 Samuel, right after Bathsheba, we see actually at 2 Samuel chapter 13, we see the story of Amnon and Tamar. Not the Tamar in the New Testament, Matthew 1, but a different Tamar. But Tamar is assaulted by her brother, and she does say, this is an evil thing, don't do this, and she begs him. So because we don't see Bathsheba saying, hey, let's not do this, there are people out there that say she consented. And I will concede that we do not see what happened between David and Bathsheba as violent, but I still don't think that means she consented. And another reason that I say she did not consent is because he was the king and he sent soldiers to summon her to him. And the word is took. It says in the book of 2 Samuel, David sent messengers and took her. So if he took her, the word took there, if you look at the Hebrew word, he took her. It was not a consensual thing. It was like, hey, you're coming here. So that also, I believe, suggests that she did not consent. Now, she came before the book of Esther. Bathsheba was before Esther. But if you look at the book of Esther, you see what happens to Queen, is it Vashti? Let me check. Okay, so I know it's many, many years later, but later in the Bible and later in time, we see that the king summoned his wife, Queen Vashti, to he was drunk, that the Bible does say he'd had too much to drink, and he wanted to parade her in front of everybody wearing her crown. Now, I have heard commentators say that he wanted to parade her wearing nothing but her crown, and that would have been sin, right? But that doesn't seem to protect Vashti in the case of her rights as a woman, as being someone who wants to be modest or proper. She was banished. She was punished harshly for refusing the king. So I use that as an example to say that I do not think that Bathsheba would have refused the king, even though what happened with Vashti happened later. I think that would have been known, that, the characters of Bathsheba's time would have also known, like, you have to do what the king says. The king is sovereign, right? Just like our God is sovereign. But the difference being, of course, our God wouldn't ask us to do something that is wrong or immoral. It's debatable. I mean, my son, he disagrees with me, and he's my oldest son, and he says, well, she should have refused. At the very least, she should have refused, and she should have been willing to accept the consequences of that. But don't forget, her husband was gone. He was away at battle. She was at home defenseless. A group of people come to take her to the castle. It's not like a polite request. That's not what I'm envisioning. I mean, the woman just had her bath. And by the way, it says it was her appropriate time to take the bath. It says that she was purifying herself from her uncleanness. So she was following the Hebrew laws laid out in Leviticus. That's another reason that I don't think that she was, looking for a rendezvous with David. Anyway, so those are some of the reasons that I don't think that Bathsheba consented. Some other little nuggets I want to share with you about this story is, the first and most obvious, that David wasn't where he was supposed to be. And so that sets this whole thing in motion. We need to be walking with God always. We need to remember God's command, look not on your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge God, and he will direct your path. So David was already outside of the will of God, I believe, because he wasn't where he was supposed to be. And then he's looking at this woman, and then he sends these people to go and get her, and then all of the sin comes about. Another thing about Bathsheba is that it says in 2 Samuel verse 26, chapter 11, verse 26, when the wife of Uriah heard that Uriah, her husband, was dead, she lamented over her husband. So she was grieving. It goes on to say, when the mourning period was over, David sent and brought her to his house. Little bit different there, okay? He took her the first time. Now he brings her to his house. But she became his wife and bore him a son, but the thing that David had done displeased the Lord. So it says also, the fact that it says the thing that David had done displeased the Lord, I take that also to mean that he was largely to blame. Bathsheba, I think maybe she should have said, this is not a good thing. This is sin. Maybe she did. I think, I don't know. Okay, and then the other thing is that, when Bathsheba does go with David and she has his child, the child dies, and David grieves that, and, he mourns that. But I like this part. After the child dies and they've been through all of the pain and the emotions, if you look at chapter 12 of 2 Samuel, verse 24, it says, "Then David comforted his wife Bathsheba." So he's gone from sending men to take her from her bath to him to meet his desires. Now he's concerned with her desires. Her child has died and he goes to comfort her. And he went to her and lay with her, and she bore a son. And he called his name Solomon. And the Lord loved him and sent a message by Nathan the prophet. So he called his name Jedediah because of the Lord. And Jedediah means loved by God. So I think also another lesson that we can take from Bathsheba and her story is that when David took her, there were consequences. Both of them suffered consequences. And then when she is grieving because her child has died and David is grieving, after that there's a change of heart in David, and so David goes to comfort her, and as a result of that we get Solomon, called Jedediah, which means loved by God. And that's also significant because Solomon then is in the lineage of Jesus Christ in Matthew chapter 1. So there's some thoughts I have on Bathsheba. Of course, if you want the rest, you're going to have to buy the study when I finish writing it. But I am really enjoying reading and thinking very carefully about these women of the Old Testament.